Welcome to the first ever video of 2021 on my channel, and as always, whenever I do my first video of my YouTube channel of the new year, I usually do a New Year resolution, or in this case, a wish list for every MLS team heading into the new year. And in this video, I'll look at each Western Conference and look at their wish list heading into 2021, and tomorrow I will be doing the Eastern Conference version and look at the Eastern Conference team in terms of their wish list heading into 2021. So let us start with the new expansion team, Austin FC. And I know Austin technically has not officially announced that they're going to be in the Western Conference, but we know they're probably going to be in the Western Conference, knowing the fact that Nashville, of course, moved to the East. Most likely Austin is going to be in the West to kind of balance out both conference to have equal amount of teams. But for Austin FC, their wish list heading into their inaugural season is really just be competitive. And I know that sounds very vague and kind of general for an expansion team, but that's kind of what every expansion team are going to be aimed for heading into their expansion year. And from what I know from past expansion team for these past couple of years, if there's one thing that I learned from these past couple of expansion team is that it is very unknown of what you're going to get in your expansion year. Like, you could potentially end up like Atlanta or LAFC and have a relatively successful expansion year, but unfortunately falter in the playoffs. Or you could have a nightmare expansion year like FC Cincinnati, which turns out to be one of the worst expansion team in recent history. Or you could have a expansion year like Nashville, where nobody expect you were going to be doing good, and then all this sudden you were able to look competitive and make it to the playoffs and even won a couple of games in your first ever playoff appearance. Or you could be like Inter Miami, where there's a lot of hype surrounded this team that they're going to bring in big names player, which eventually they kind of did, and it didn't work out whatsoever. So really, I think from now on I could say that just because when you look at these expansion team and how their roster is going to build, doesn't mean it, if you think that they build a good roster, that it of course will work out in MLS, because as I said, we've seen this happen before where even teams believe that they build a good roster heading their expansion year, it blows up in their face. And then there could be times where it could be the opposite, where people think that they did a poor job in terms of constructing the roster heading to their expansion year, and they turns out to do just fine. So I think for Austin, they hope that they can build a good enough squad where they can be competitive heading into their inaugural year. But either way, there's a lot of unknown that's going to be happening with Austin heading into this year, and we don't know what kind of version of expansion team they're going to be heading into their inaugural year. Now for the Rapids, their wish list is that the core that they locked up during this off season so far will provide some playoff success. We know they locked up a lot of long-term contract with a couple of players on their roster during this off season, which means that yeah, they are definitely committed with the players that they have, and they hope that those players that have been relatively successful during their time with the Rapids will continue to gain that success. And that I really think this Rapids team, they have a very decent squad, and that, you know, that last year when they were able to make the playoffs for the first time in 2016, it was a progress that they have finally got over the mountain of kind of a rebuild that they had to get themselves back into playoff contention. And now heading into this season, knowing the fact that they know there's the potential that this team can definitely do very, very well, not only making the playoffs, but maybe making a run in the playoffs. That's why they of course locked up to those contracts, and they hope that by doing that they have the core to basically compete heading into this season. For FC Dallas, continue to develop young talent and sell it for a big profit. And technically this wish list kind of already come true for FC Dallas, because we know Brian Reynolds is going to potentially go to Juventus, and FC Dallas is going to get a seven-figure amount of money. Well, not just a seven-figure, but an eight-figure amount of able to sell Brian Reynolds to Europe, and that they can definitely invest that money either to maybe find a replacement for him, or just invest it on the youth academy, which, as I mentioned many times before, Dallas has one of the best youth academy in the entire league. So yeah, I expect their wish list is going to be kind of almost the same as it is for the past couple of years. They're going to continue to believe in their youth development and their youth system, and they're going to bring in some more youth talent in their team, or eventually going to sell some of their youth talent to Europe and earn big profit out of that. For the Dynamo, they need to, of course, show progress in stage 1 of the long rebuild as their main wish list. Obviously, it's pretty clear the Dynamo is going to be heading to a rebuild, and I know they are probably not going to be a team that's going to be making the playoffs heading into next season. But as always, whenever a team goes through a long rebuild or in the progress of beginning a rebuild, they need to, of course, show progress in the first season, and I think that's what Dynamo fans are hoping this team can be, where they're going to obviously accept that there's going to be the growing pains in terms of dealing with a rebuild, and that they're not going to be competitive next season, but they need to at least show some progress, that they're heading into the right direction in terms of the rebuild that they are heading in. For the LA Galaxy, their wish list is obviously going to be a new head coach and an upgrade backline that will get them back to playoff contention. Obviously, we know that they are getting close to getting Greg Vanney as their new head coach, because I heard there's news that the negotiation is getting very close to over the line. Well, if Greg Vanney does come to this team, and we know his history of, if you give him a decent enough squad, and you give the players that he wants to construct a decent squad, he can, of course, do good things with your team. And for the Galaxy, they're kind of like TFC, where they're not afraid to spend money to get the players that Greg Vanney wants, and if that, of course, is the case, and also the fact that if there's going to be an upgraded backline, which is something that has been a bit of kind of a meme whenever I talk about the Galaxy, where I always talk about how their backline is hot garbage. Well, is this finally the year where they finally found the right player to solidify that backline, and that if they can do that, I think they can definitely get themselves back into playoff contention. Now, for LAFC, it's pretty simple. Their wish list is obviously going to be the MLS Cup, and that they hope that third year is really the charm for them to win MLS Cup, and that with the talent that they have, and the way that they already have make some off-season acquisition to kind of improve the biggest problem that they had during last season, which is on the defensive end. They hope that this will be enough for them to finally get to the promised land and finally win the MLS Cup, which is something that they've been want to do ever since they come into the league. I mean, they came so close in their second year, and then in the third year, obviously they were wrecked with the whole chaotic season, and also the international break kind of took place at the worst time for them to have their first playoff game. Well, if there's barring any other chaotic thing that's going to be happening in the 2021 season, and if the season is going to be kind of similar to what we had in the 2019 season, and pretty much in a normal MLS season, this is definitely a team that is going to be aiming to not only make the playoffs again, but they're looking to finish on their unfinished business, which is finally lifting the trophy. For Minnesota, it's find a good Molino replacement and hope for a proper number 9. Obviously, we know Kevin Molino is not going to be coming back for this team, which definitely does leave a big hole on that left wing role. So I'm really hoping the Loons can find a replacement for that. And then, of course, the number 9 position. I know last season we had some success in terms of putting Robin Lod as a false number 9 down the season. But obviously, I would love to see that we have a proper number 9. And technically, we do have a proper number 9 in Luis Amarilla. But, there's still question whether or not if he's going to be coming back to Minnesota heading into next season. And if he does come back to the Loons next season, is he going to rediscover that good form that he had when he first came in to this team, where people forget that he was definitely a stud when he came to this team. And the first 2 games that he played for Minnesota was really good, and you can definitely see some high potential in terms of that. Well, obviously when you saw for the rest of the season where he's been dealing with injuries, and eventually that injury kind of put him to a point where he needs to require surgery and to pretty much ended his season. Hopefully now he can of course recover and have a strong second season, and especially now that he actually have a proper number 10 in Reynoso, providing the chances and providing the service that he needs. Hopefully he can of course have a proper season. But if he's not going to be coming back from this team next season, hopefully we'll find a proper number 9 to basically replace him in that spot. For the Portland Timbers, their wish list is obviously clean up the late collapse and hope that they can go deep into the playoffs and really win now before the aging core is going to see a really big decline. We know the Timbers have one of the oldest squad in this league, and that the core that they've been having is definitely started to age badly. So they know that it is now or never if they want to compete for MLS Cup before they kind of maybe have to tear it down a little bit and build in a new core. They need to, of course, do it heading into next season. But the thing that they want to do before they can think about maybe going to make a deep run heading into the playoffs next season is that they got to clean up their late collapse. Like this is something that was a huge issue for them last year, where there's multiple times that they blown leads and multiple times they squander opportunity to get all 3 points by conceding late goals. And heck, even in the playoffs, they concede a late goal to FC Dallas that ultimately kind of forced them to go to extra time and ultimately kind of basically gone into a penalty kick shootout where they weren't able to win that one. So yeah, that's something that they need to, of course, clean up if they are going to try to make a deep playoff run heading into next year. For RSL, it's also pretty simple what their wish list is going to be. It's that the new ownership will have to stabilize this team. Now, this is another team that I'm not quite sure are they going to be ready to basically compete for the playoffs, and you would think that they're going to be heading into a bit of a rebuild with this new ownership. But the big question for RSL as of now is who is going to be the new ownership for this team, because right now there's really no new owners that they've been named from this team to take over Dilroy Hansen, and that right now it's technically the league that is basically taking control of RSL, and some of the moves that RSL have made was mainly because of the league kind of controlling them. So unless if they can, of course, find a new ownership and kind of start this proper rebuild, I think they're going to be stuck in a bit of a limbo situation if they aren't able to do so. And that, again, that is probably the biggest wish list for RSL heading into this 2021 year, which is hopefully find that new ownership and find the owners that can basically take over this team and really stabilize this team that has just been an absolute mess for these past couple of years because of the ongoing scandal on the field and off the field that has been happening with this team. For the Quakes, it's also pretty simple. What their wish list is going to be is that we know Wando, this is probably his farewell season, and because this is his farewell season, I hope it's a memorable one. And one way that we can make Wando final year to be memorable is not only make the playoffs, but also go to a deep playoff run. And that other thing that I hope that will make Wando final year be memorable is hopefully we can find some reinforcement or even start thinking about potentially replacing Wando heading into next year, because we know that, as I said, this is his final year, and that the fact that the Quakes still have not found a proper replacement for Wando, knowing the fact that he is really now heading into his last leg in his final year, is definitely very, very concerning. And that, again, that is something that I hope the Quakes will, of course, try to do. But I know the fact that that's not going to happen, because the Quakes front office and the fact that they would always find a way to kind of screw this thing up. And that, if there is one thing at the bare minimum that I hope for the Quakes this season, is at least don't screw up Wando's final year, and just don't make him just kind of sit on the bench throughout the entire season and feels like it's just kind of a glass half empty kind of moment of Wando's final year for this team, because he deserved much better in terms of his final year, and what would be much better of a deserving of what Wando final season with the Quakes, and really the final season in this league, is for us to make a deep playoff run, or maybe even win an MLS Cup for him in the final year, and make sure Wando does go out of this of his final year as a champion. Now, for the Seattle Sounders, speaking of MLS Cup, they're definitely looking to trying to get back to that point, and that they're kind of now going to be going on a redemption tour to try to complete that legendary dynasty status. And that if the Sounders does make MLS Cup once again next year, which would make it 5 MLS Cup appearances in the last 6 years, and if they can win that MLS Cup, yeah, they pretty much have cemented themselves into legendary status. And you could once again maybe bring up the discussion: is this the greatest team to ever play in MLS during that span of period? And there would not be a lot of argument to say that there isn't the greatest team, and that their dynasty is definitely going to be not in a legendary status. But obviously, the thing that they need to do is that they want to try to get themselves back to MLS Cup, because I know the Sounders is one of those teams around MLS where, you know, anything but an MLS Cup is going to be a disappointment. For Sporting KC, their wish list this season is that they need to find depth in terms of the number 9 spot, and also improve the back line. And we kind of already started to see that wish list started to kind of come true with the back line part, as they have been linked with a center back out of the Norwegian League, I believe was with Moat FK, and that they're getting close to potentially signing him. But obviously they also want to maybe look into finding another number 9, or maybe a guy that could potentially step in when Polito is not available for this team. We know last season that, you know, with how good Polito was with this team, when he was not with this team, that's when issues start to come with this SKC team. So they definitely need to potentially find some depth in terms of that spot, because there's no guarantee the fact that Alan Polito is going to be coming back next season and play every single game. And especially if he does made himself back into the contention of the Mexican national team, we know he probably will not be available for this SKC team during that Gold Cup period in July, and that they of course definitely need to find a potential, I wouldn't say replacement, but more of a guy that will be have a equal amount of dangerousness that is going to be there in that spot, and that it won't feel like if they do miss Polito for or a spell period, that they definitely miss the quality in terms of an attack that this SKC has, just like what happened last season. And then finally, for the last team in terms of this MLS wish list in the Western Conference, we look at the Vancouver Whitecaps, and their main wish list is obviously get to the playoffs to complete the next stage of the rebuild. I mean, they came so close last season in terms of making the playoffs, and knowing the fact that they are committed in terms of the players that they had. And I'm really also hoping that they might maybe go out in the offseason and maybe get a couple of more decent players, especially a proper number 9, because if they can of course get a proper number or a proper number 10, that is, I mean, they already have a proper number 9 in Lucas Cavallini, but if they can get a proper central attacking midfielder or a DP level of central attacking midfielder, yeah, this Whitecaps team can be a dangerous team, and that this could definitely be a team that could actually complete the next stage of the rebuild, which is actually making a playoff appearance. But yeah, there you have it. That is pretty much it for my wish list or this is pretty much the wish list for every MLS team that is in the Western Conference heading into the 2021 season. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of this video, and if you are a supporter of one of these teams, what is your wish list in terms of what your team should be heading into the 2021 season, and in general heading into 2021. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.